Hello. 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 Why don't we start with 2 minutes of sitting? Okay? If you're eating, don't worry about it. You can mindfully eat. Yeah, so I want to suggest putting things away and finding a way to sit where you can be alert and relaxed. Literally, we're going to do this for 2 minutes. In fact, I'm going to time. Simply noticing what it's like sitting here in this chair. Noticing the transition from whatever activity you were doing to stopping, to arriving, being here. Again, simply noticing sensations of butt on chair, feet on floor. Noticing your shoulders, noticing that you are breathing. Holding up your chin, maybe relaxing the muscles in your face, relaxing the jaw. Just seeing what's possible to just fully arrive here now. Checking in with your body, checking in with your breath, noticing your thoughts, whether your thoughts are coming quickly or your mind is calm, just noticing and seeing if you can come back to the breath, the body. Perhaps even checking in with your own heart. What is your deepest feelings, mood, aspiration, however you defined heart. Great. And let's gently bring our attention being back here with each other in the room. Well, I want to start with a poem. When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. When your vision is gone, no part of the world can find you. Time to go into the darkness, where the night has eyes, to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. There, in the night, in the darkness, you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your womb tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. This is part of a poem by David Whyte, and I particularly love this line, and his description of when he was writing this poem was that he was by himself in a cabin, dark, rainy night, and he wrote the line, "You must learn one thing," and didn't know what was going to happen next. And he could feel the hairs on the back of his neck. And what appeared were the words, "The world was made to be free in." And I realized part of why I love this poem and this line so much is that I feel like this has really been the burning question for much of my life is, what does it mean to be free? What does it really mean to be free? What stops us from being free? And the subject here is poetry and pragmatism as a way into understanding and practicing mindfulness. And in a way, to me, this word mindfulness really means the practice of freedom. It's the practice of how we can be free. And there's so many very practical, day-to-day ways in which we're not free. I was, several years ago, I was driving down to Google to teach a Search Inside Yourself class. This was when I was co-teaching with Meng. And as I was driving down from my home in the North Bay down to Mountain View, I could feel myself getting more and more anxious. And I started remembering that I was going to be rated by every person in the class from 1 to 5 on how well I interacted, how knowledgeable I was. And the more I thought about that, the more anxious I was getting. And while I was driving down, I slipped in a lecture by David White. And I was listening to this lecture. I felt myself becoming freer and freer. And I thought, screw those Google people. I don't care how they rate me. I'm just going to completely show up and be there as fully and with as much love and freedom as I possibly can. And I got out of my car, and Meng and I started teaching this class. And during the break, an hour into it, Meng turned to me and said, "What happened to you?" He said, "You're usually pretty good, but you were really good today." And I told him that story, and I felt like I was able to, in that moment, to just show up and be free. So there's something very freeing about poetry. And to me, although I'm reading some poetry, there's also something very inspirational, aspirational about poetry. And in a way, our lives are all inspirational, aspirational, mysterious. We don't really know what it means to be a human being. We don't really know what consciousness is. And in terms of leadership, I think of there's a wonderful quote by the author of The Little Prince, in which he says, if you want to build a ship, don't teach people to gather wood and to use tools and order them about. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vastness of the sea. Teach people to yearn for the vastness of the sea. And to me, this is how I would describe a core part of leadership, and using poetry and using mindfulness. So mindfulness is this wide, poetic, beautiful sense of how we can live in the world. But at the same time, what about the pragmatic? What about the world of stuff, the world of buildings, the world of data and research, the world of org charts? And I would say that this, too, is mindfulness practice, and that it's also a path toward freedom. And that we don't need to choose between the poetic and the pragmatic. And that it's not that we want to find some middle ground. In fact, I think we want part of what we want to do, I believe, as mindfulness practitioners, is to really embrace the poetry, to embrace the mystery, the inspirational, the feelings. What is it that brings us alive? What is it that most brings you alive? In fact, in that poem that I read, the very last lines are, anything that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Anything that does not bring you alive is too small for you. So I think this is a huge part of stepping into mindfulness practice, is noticing, paying attention to feelings, paying attention to what brings you alive. And at the same time, we have to take care of our communication being pragmatically clear. We have to take care of things like money, like making sure that we understand the practical parts of being a human being. And I want to bring in the organization that I'm now the CEO of, which is SILI. It's a SILI organization, and it's SIYLI, Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. And the mission and vision of SILI is that all leaders in the world are wise and compassionate. You just got it. All leaders in the world are wise and compassionate, thus creating the conditions for world peace. Very poetic, right? All leaders in the world are wise and compassionate, thus creating the conditions for world peace. So poetic, aspirational, kind of impossible. It sounds like how could this be? But there's a pragmatic element to it. We're really looking at what does it mean to train wise and compassionate leaders? How will we know if we succeeded? What does it mean to help create the conditions for world peace? How can we actually make a difference in things like violence and bias and inequality? Can we actually be part of measuring and helping to make a difference in solving some of these large issues? But also, I think the starting point is how can we make ourselves more peaceful? How can we become more peaceful? How can we bring peace to our daily lives, whether it's at Google or the people we interact with in the grocery store or outside, in all our relationships? How can we make ourselves more peaceful? And again, there's very much a poetic part of that as well as a practical part. The poetic part is the aspiration to be more aware, to see our blind spots, to bring more compassion into the world, to help others. Again, to me, in a way, these are where the poetic and the practical seem to come together. And again, this is the sense of mindfulness practice as in a way, there's a balance piece to it, but there's also a way in which to be fully inspirational, mysterious, poetic. So I want to encourage everyone to bring more poetry into your life, even if it's just listening to poetry, but looking at what is it that brings you alive? What is it that fully brings you alive? I had a teacher of mine when I was a young Zen student living at Green Gulch Farm. A teacher named Harry Roberts used to say that being a human being is very simple. We just need to ask and answer 3 questions. Right? Very simple being a human being. 3 questions we just need to ask and answer. What do you want? What do you have to do to get it? And can you pay the price? And Harry would then, after saying this, would let out this huge belly laugh, saying, real simple. Very few people ask the first question, right? What do you want? What do you want? And there's something both extremely poetic, inspirational, mysterious about just asking that question. Like, how do you know what you want? It's a dangerous question. What if you really, each day, ask yourself, what's really important to me? What's really in my heart? And then what do you have to do to get it is kind of practical. Then it's like, okay, what do you do? What do I actually do? Like, maybe I have to go to law school. Maybe I have to learn a different kind of mathematics or coding or something that in order to be able to fulfill whatever that question is. Maybe I need to learn, to dance or learn a language. Maybe I need to take a risk. And then also the third part, can I pay the price, is also very, very practical. So to me, this image is this, what do you want? The balance of being both very poetic and very practical at the same time. So there's something really powerfully difficult and challenging about being in this human form. One of the things that I'm fond of saying is that being a human being is a tough gig. Being a human being is a tough gig. And here we are, we're born. We have there's all kinds of difficulties that most of us have in growing up. I think of part of what brought me to this question about what does it mean to be free was, for me, growing up with a manic depressive father, and in a family where it was mostly things like feelings and difficulties and even mental illness were all swept under the rug. That it wasn't something that anyone ever talked about. Yet I could feel it. I could feel the trauma of that. I could feel in my body the lack of freedom of that. And I notice these days as when I walk into a room, it's very often these days, I walk into a room of very successful business people who on the surface really have it together. I did a workshop not too long ago with 150 salespeople from a large tech company who flew in from all around the world for a Search Inside Yourself workshop, and this was a jacket and tie culture, and I noticed little by little as we were having conversations, they were talking with each other, we were practicing mindfulness, practicing meditation. They started to all kind of fall apart a bit, and you could kind of see that there was this humanness underneath the gloss of having it together. And one of the assumptions that I make, and one of the assumptions that I think is a really important assumption in mindfulness and in Search Inside Yourself, is that the more we can bring in this humanness, the more we can bring in the poetry combined with the pragmatic, the more we'll actually be able to get done as leaders and as people in organizations. That it used to be, for many, many years, I think it was thought that we needed to take the humanness out of organizations. There was an expression about leaving your soul in the parking lot. And these days, I think part of why organizations like Google and many others all around the world are embracing mindfulness practice is because there's now this more agreement and this big aha that actually we're no longer working on assembly lines. We're now working in places where people need to communicate with each other, where everything is done in teams. So I want to bring in the how. Right, so I feel like I'm raising a variety of questions around the importance of poetry, the importance of asking yourself the question, what does it mean to be free? What is freedom? And what's the relationship between mindfulness practice and freedom? Well, in one way, mindfulness practice is the practice of freedom. It's the practice of being completely present for whatever is. So like my story of driving down to Google was, I wasn't pushing aside my anxiety. I could really feel my anxiety, but could see that in a way those feelings were getting in the way of me just being present, of just showing up. So how can we just show up? How can we just be with difficult feelings and joyful feelings? How can we totally embrace and be free in our own bodies, in our own skin, with our own feelings? And these 7 principles, some people in this room it's going to be familiar to. One of the programs that we have here at Google is called the Train the Trainer program, in which we're working with small groups of people who are training to teach the Search Inside Yourself program. And at one of those early sessions, we had a full day with this Train the Trainer Google employees to teach them how to teach meditation, how to become a mindfulness teacher, how to be a meditation teacher. And we brought in a man named Norman Fisher, who is a leading Zen teacher, was at this meeting, and he was asked to speak about how people could learn to become mindfulness and meditation teachers. Actually, it was, I still remember, it was a very funny scene. We were sitting at a table, and on one side of me was Meng, and on the other side of me was Norman. And I had the agenda in front of me, and I pushed it over to Norman, who I think he didn't realize he was going to be asked to give a talk. And I kind of, sort of nudged Norman and showed him that his talk was coming up. And he got out a napkin and a pen, and he started making some notes. And I was kind of watching this happen. And Norman's little scribble actually turned into what I'm calling the 7 principles. And so these were initially the 7 principles for how to become a meditation teacher. But as Norman was describing these, and afterwards, I thought, actually, this is how I want to live my life. And this is how I want us all in the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute to work together. And we've kind of customized, revised Norman's original 7 principles and turned them into how to live your life. So to me, this is these principles are the how to transcend and to totally, fully embrace and integrate the poetry and pragmatism of everyday life, the poetry and pragmatism of being a human being. And in a way, to get a sense of the depth and breadth of this word mindfulness, which I think when I see mindfulness in the press and when people talk about it, in a way it's becoming smaller and smaller. And I want to open it up. I want to present that actually mindfulness is a lifetime, endless practice filled with poetry, and at the same time, also a very pragmatic practice, right? Count your breath and let yourself be expansive. And in a way, I think what I think of poetry and pragmatism as, in a way, it's a methodology, a path of uncrusting your heart, opening your mind, allowing yourself to be fully alive. So, 7 principles. The first principle is love the work. Love the work. So what is the work? The work is the work of being present, the work of opening your own awareness and helping other people. Maybe it's that, in a way, it's that simple. In some way, what if our main focus, our main intention in our daily life, here at work or wherever we are, is becoming more aware, opening up to seeing our blind spots, seeing what stops us from being free, trying to become more present, more feeling, bringing our own awareness to what we're feeling, and looking for opportunities to help others. So in the context of becoming a mindfulness and meditation teacher, the work in a way is to love meditation practice and to love the work of bringing the lessons from meditation practice into one's daily life. So this is the work. Love the work of being a human being. Second is do the work, right? So to actually have a sitting practice, have a mindfulness practice, to spend time becoming more aware of your own feelings, your own sensations, tuning in to others. This is a sense of what it means to actually do the work. The third principle of these 7 principles is don't become an expert. Now, of course, we all want to become experts, and you can become an expert in a particular field, but when it comes to the field of mindfulness, when it comes to the field of poetry and pragmatism, the idea is to continually uncrust our minds and uncrust our hearts. To be able to see that we're never going to become experts in mindfulness. And in a way, one of the beautiful things about mindfulness, in a way, it's moving from a sense of attainment to non-attainment, from a sense of grasping to continually letting go, letting go. There's this expression, opening the hand of thought, right? Opening the, so our minds, in our minds we want to become experts, we want to know, we want to succeed, and those are all very natural human desires. But how can we let it go? There's a saying that comes from the Zen world, right? In the expert's mind, there are very few possibilities. In the beginner's mind, there are many, right? In the beginner's mind, many possibilities. In the expert's, there are few. So again, just noticing our own desire to become an expert and looking to see how we can let it go. The fourth principle is to let your own pain in, to feel your own pain. And I would add to that, to feel your own joy, to feel your feelings completely. There's tremendous wisdom in our emotional life. There's a beautiful little video that we show during the Search Inside Yourself program of Daniel Goleman looking at the brain science of our emotional life, and in which he uses the words, the wisdom of the emotions is not just a pretty phrase, right? That there's some real wonderful, amazing wisdom in our own emotional lives. And the fifth of these 7 principles is to feel the pain of others, right? So if you want, whether it's becoming a meditation teacher, or becoming a leader, or someone who's working effectively on a team, it's tuning into the feelings of others and noticing that that everyone brings a certain pain, a certain difficulty, a certain anxiety. It's part of being a human being, and just being able to tune into that. The 6th principle is to depend on others. Depend on others. Everything we do in our lives, we don't even see it, because it's a little bit like fish not seeing the water that they're swimming in. That's what, to me, depending on others is like that. That whether it comes to this room or the wonderful food that we just ate over in the cafe. I mean, even the clean air. To be able to have clean air requires that others help to keep the air clean. There's I'll tell a little story about depending on others, which was when I once co-taught a one-day workshop, a Search Inside Yourself workshop here at Google, in which I was co-teaching with a Google employee who was teaching for the first time. And we were about to walk out onto the stage like this, and there were maybe 50 or 60 executives in the room. And as we were about to walk out, she turns to me and says, I think I'm going to either vomit or faint. I don't know what I'm doing up here teaching mindfulness and emotional intelligence. I feel like a fraud. I'm really, really frightened, and I don't think I can go out there. And I said, well, I get nervous too, and I'm nervous. I'm nervous about going out there, but let's depend on each other out there. I said, what if my job when we go out there is to make you look good, and your job is to make me look good? And I said, and you have a much tougher job. But why don't, if you forget what you're going to say, if you get nervous, if you drop it, I'll be right there. I'll be right there. And she said, oh, she gulped, and we went out, and she started, she went out, started talking, and I could see she was just completely relaxed, and we gave each other a little hidden thumbs up as we made eye contact. And to me, it was just a beautiful way that it actually calmed me down, her being so transparent and willing to share her nervousness. And it was a way that to really make it explicit, the way that we were depending on others. And I think, again, I would encourage you to allow yourself to see how you depend on others. You know, I recently, not too long ago, I had hip replacement surgery. I had one of my hips replaced. And one of the amazing things about it was for a week or so, not being able to get dressed by myself or get in and out of bed, and feeling the vulnerability and beauty of just depending on someone else. And I'm not sure exactly why. I think it was partly because of that and partly because of surgery, but I found myself falling apart quite a bit. I would hear a song and just start to cry, or I'd see it, you know, hear a line from a movie, and I would just be weeping, and it just felt actually so wonderful. In fact, I find myself a little grasping because I want to be like that all the time. And there's something very, very enlivening about falling apart, depending on others to pick you up. People will pick. It's amazing. So often we don't want to fall apart. We don't want to depend on others. A lot of us don't even like to ask for anything or make a request, right? So there's something very beautiful, something very powerful about depending on others. And the last practice is keep making it simpler. Really hard one, a really hard one. Right? Keep making it simpler. Things seem to get so complicated very, very, very easily without us even being aware of how complicated it can be. But what about the practice? And this is what I love about mindfulness practice, mindfulness meditation practice, is what could be simpler than bringing your attention to your breath, noticing that you're breathing. So when things get very complicated, even during a very busy, complex day, you can always actually just stop and pause and bring your attention to your breath, to your body. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? And it actually, it could take about 5 or 10 seconds to do that. And it can actually be a big time saver. It doesn't take any extra time. That time's going to happen. You could be anxious and frantic and not do that. And then it often, the things that take the most time, I find, in the world of work are unraveling the stupid things that I've said or that somebody else has said. And it's so to keep it simple, to keep, this is the tool of our business life. There's that Stephen Covey used to talk about, sharpening the saw, right? This image of the carpenter that doesn't have time to stop and sharpen their saw because they're too busy. And then they're sawing and sawing and sawing with this dull blade and not getting anything done. But they still can't stop, right? Too busy. So in this case, what I love about that image is that we are the saw. And to me, mindfulness practice and mindfulness meditation practice is stopping to sharpen the saw so that whatever we do actually has more impact, more possibility, more effectiveness. And in a way, a core practice has to do with the question, are we building walls or are we building bridges? Right? In each moment of your life to notice, are you building walls or are you building bridges? And bridges with yourself. Are you being true to yourself? Are you being true to your own feelings? Are you deeply asking that question, what do you want? Do you pay attention? Do you allow your own feelings, intuition to arise? So there's that bridge to your own feelings. And then are you actually noticing that the world isn't all you? That there are a lot of people out there who depend on you and who you depend on. So are you building walls? Are you crusting your heart? Is your heart getting more crusted? Is your own thinking getting more concretized? Or are you developing more flexibility? And I want to encourage you, again, the practices are, these 7 principles are like, these are actually things you can do. And poetry and pragmatism are kind of the container for holding these 7 practices. And I want to end by reading a short poem. And this is a poem by Rilke, the German poet Rilke. I live my life in growing orbits, which move out over the things of the world. I live my life in growing orbits, which move out over the things of the world. Perhaps I can never achieve the last, but that will be my attempt. Right? Perhaps I can never achieve the last. Right? Perhaps I can never get to the furthest orbit. Perhaps I'll never be able to be as wide and perhaps I'll never be able to achieve as much as I want to achieve. But that will be my attempt. I'm circling around God. I'm circling around an ancient tower. And I've been circling for 1,000 years. I've been circling for 1,000 years. And I still don't know if I'm a falcon or a storm or a great song. And I still don't know if I'm a falcon or a storm or a great song. So you can see I've chosen to be a falcon this morning, circling around. So to me, there's actually, this is poetry, right? I'm reading poetry, very poetic. But there's something to me very practical about when we sit down, when we sit down in a chair or on our cushion, and we bring our attention to our breath and our body, or when we get up from our cushion and we go off into the world, being curious and present and interested, we don't know what will happen. In fact, we don't even know really who or what we are. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to not know whether you are a falcon or maybe you are a storm, right? Some days are stormy, or a great song. Not just a song, but a great song. So I want us to try something. Actually, how about if everybody stands up for a second? And how about finding a partner? Find someone in the room, maybe that you don't know, but if it's you don't, but find someone without talking and have a seat. Have a seat. Each person is going to speak for 3 whole minutes. During your 3 minutes, the other person is not going to ask you questions or interrupt. This is called we're going to do mindful listening here. 3 minutes, and then we'll switch. The other person will have 3 minutes. I'm fond of saying, if you run out of something to say in your 3 minutes, just sit there uncomfortably. Don't just stop and have the other person go. It's okay. Actually, it's one of the wonderful things about meditation and mindfulness. You can always choose to do nothing, and it's okay. This is a place where doing nothing can be a comfortable place. And if it's uncomfortable, great. Uncomfortable. We're not trying to avoid discomfort. It's okay. It's really okay. That is so freeing. It's so freaking freeing if you can be let go of needing to be comfortable all the time. Okay, so my suggested topic is just talk for 3 minutes about how might you describe the poetry and pragmatism of your own life? 3 minutes, however it comes up for you. How might you just talk, and I want to suggest pretend you know what you're doing here. You might have no idea what the assignment is or what the hell is this talk, but just pretend and speak with with as much conviction and clarity as you can muster. Here's how my life is poetic, and here's how my life is pragmatic. One other topic, possibility, is anything you want to talk about. You might actually, I don't know what's happening in your life right now. You might not either. But sometimes it can just be a great gift having someone listen to you for 3 minutes. It can be, so there might be something that's up for you. So feel free to talk about whatever you want. So let's just take a breath. Let's all just breathe together and relax. Whatever you've prepared to say already, forget about it. Trust that you'll know when it's your turn to speak. So how about if the person with the shortest hair is going to be person A? Person with the shortest hair is person A. So person A, you have 3 minutes. I'll ring a bell in 3 minutes, and then we'll switch. So go ahead.
Yes.
Okay. So the first person should finish, and then let's go right to the second person. You have 3 minutes to talk about poetry and pragmatism. Okay. Okay, let's finish and thank your partners, and then let's come on back. We have a few minutes for comments, questions about how that. I'm really curious how that went. But anything else anyone wants to add, ask, comment on? See, I'm not uncomfortable with silence.
No, I think it's very interesting how one thing leads to another one and you start opening up. I think at some point, I don't know if it happened to other people, but you need to close the doors because you realize that you are getting deeper and deeper into things that you didn't think about 2 minutes ago, 6 minutes ago. So I thought that was very interesting in that part.
So the part about just noticing the opening up.
Yes, and I think we both were very open about what we were talking. Even I don't think we really knew what we were talking about, but it was sincere. You can feel it. You know, that's yes. What I mean. That was you could feel the sincerity.
From one view, these two things could be viewed as a paradox, and both seemingly oppositional to each other yet coexisting at the same time. And I know you've written a lot about paradox. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about how the usefulness of paradox and how it shows up in our lives.
Yeah, I think I once, there's this wonderful quote that's, if it's not paradoxical, it's not true. And I Googled to see who said it, and it said Marc Lesser. I know someone else said it before me. But in some way, being a human being is just incredibly paradoxical, right? In that we don't know, how did we get here? How did we get here? What are we doing here? What is consciousness? So just there's that big paradox. But then, in everything we do, some of my favorite paradoxes are be confident and question everything, right? Fight for change and accept what is. Like, of course, right? Of course we have to fight for change. If you're always fighting, though, it's not so good. If you're always accepting, not so good. We have to do both. So just like I think, yes, there's something very poetic about the human condition. So we should fully go there. And practical, right? Like you have to, like we have 1 minute left. I was noticing my shoes could be shinier. That Matt, you've got the shiniest shoes. You might have holes in your socks, but your shoes are really shiny. To notice the paradoxes and to embrace them, and in a way to see, right? So I wrote a book on this called "Know Yourself, Forget Yourself." That's what I think of as also a very core practice. Know yourself, right? We want to know ourselves, right? There's a famous Zen guy from the 13th century named Dogen, who said, right, to study the way, and it's funny, even the way means to study what it means to be a human being. To study what it means to be a human being is to study the self, right? You study the self. Then the next line of this piece of writing, to study the self is to forget the self. It's like, huh? But it's so like, yeah, because we don't want to go around being it's not about being self-conscious. It's about being free, right? So you can't just go right. A lot of people try to go right to self-forgetting. It doesn't work so well. I notice there's I sometimes see it as a PES disease is what they call it, premature enlightenment syndrome. This sense that, I don't have a self. Well, no, that's not, we don't ever, so we want to have a really healthy self, and we want to be able to not be so self-conscious, to find freedom there. And then the other line, right, to study the self, to study the ways, to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to become intimately connected to all people and all things, right? It's to lose any sense of separation. So in a way, it's a wonderful path of practice. Self-study, self-forgetting, drop all disconnect. See that there is, again, that's in a way the real freedom, is to see that our separateness is an illusion. It's a very compelling illusion, but it's an illusion. Our separateness is an illusion. And maybe that's a really good note to end on. Thank you all very much.